All right, good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. I want to thank the members of the media for being here and all of these remarkable leaders for being here with me today. I'm here today because when I met with this group of people standing behind me and beside me today, they told me that they had something to say. So for the last several months, there have been heightened conversations around the Atlanta Public Safety Training Center. Too often, those conversations have been led by folks who are not from here and who do not have Atlantans' interests at heart. But they claim to be speaking for the community. What you see before you is an important part of the community, and we want their voices to be heard. Earlier today, I met with several other members of the community as part of the very first meeting of our South River Forest and Public Safety Training Center Community Task Force. I assembled that diverse group because I want to ensure that community voices are always at the table as we move forward. That Community Task Force has now officially begun their work, and I look forward to receiving their recommendations later this summer, along with the Community Stakeholder Advisory Committee, which is continuing its valuable work that started over a year ago. So let me be clear to you today that the Atlanta Public Safety Training Center is moving forward because we need it. Our fire and police departments are the largest in the state of Georgia, but we don't have permanent training facilities for either of them. Their training buildings have long been condemned, so we're using rented and borrowed spaces. Our firefighters are learning to drive those ladder trucks on our city streets at night when they hope no one will be around. Our police officers are doing laps in hallways at our rented space in Atlanta Metropolitan State College. That is simply not acceptable for Atlanta. As residents of this city, we should expect that our public safety personnel has the highest level of training to serve us. This has been one of the most highly scrutinized projects in our city. It was put before the elected members of the Atlanta City Council, and it was approved by a supermajority vote. It was put through a year's worth of review by the DeKalb County Department of Planning and Sustainability, and it was approved. The elected DeKalb County CEO reviewed it and approved it. The Georgia Department of Natural Resources Environmental Protection Division also approved it. A challenge to the project was turned back by a Fulton County judge, and the project was approved. And just last week, the DeKalb County Zoning Board of Appeals voted unanimously to affirm the construction permits. Every part of this project has been scrutinized and has been found to be fully compliant with the law and all environmental protection requirements. So, we are moving forward. But at this time, there are plenty of decisions that are still left to be made, and we are open to any good idea. In just a few moments, you're going to be hearing from some of these great leaders about why they support investments in public safety in Atlanta. One of those reasons is because of the very real challenges that we are facing with violent crime in our communities, especially over the course of the pandemic. That issue is why we put forward a robust, full, whole-of-government approach to ensuring public safety. We've hired more officers and given them the tools to do their job. We're also investing in our young people through our programs like the Summer Youth Employment Program, Midnight Basketball, which actually kicks off its fourth season tonight in a few hours, and mentorship, which many of the men and women behind me are already signed up, 600 or more of them, as mentors. These investments are working. As of now, we're 25% down in violent crime this year over the same period last year. We've had half the number of homicides and half the number of rapes as we did this time last year. So what we're doing is working, but we can't stop now. Atlantans deserve highly trained police and fire personnel because when something does happen, we want to make sure that they are ready and able to address it. We have several people with us today that know that's to be the case. Miss Shayla Barlow Jones is here with us today. Her son, Caden, should be celebrating his 16th birthday next week, but he was a victim of gun violence in 2021, taken from our community far too soon. Ms. Barlow Jones is here, and she helps us to know those voices of victims and their beloved ones that need to be centered in these conversations as well. So we're going to take a moment and hear from a few members of the community, and then I'll be glad to take your questions at the end. But for right now, I'm going to pass it to Dr. Dana Green Roberts of KIPP. Dana?
Good afternoon. It is an amazing, amazing day to sit here and to stand here in solidarity with these beautiful men who are thinkers, but not only doers of the work in our community. Like Mayor Dickens said, my name is Dana Roberts, and I'm a proud Atlanta native and an alumna of Atlanta Public Schools. As a 20-plus year educator, it is with an open mind, a grateful heart, and planted feet that I stand in solidarity with Mayor Dickens, Ambassador Young, the Just Brothers, and other community leaders here today. Unfortunately, I know all too well the impact of gun violence on our youth and broader community. I believe that providing a joyful, excellent academic experience in our schools is only one part of a holistic approach in education and personal safety. Stopping gun violence is a collective effort that involves addressing housing, health care, livable wages, and quality education. I believe that every single one of my educator colleagues has a pure and sincere commitment to work together in principle and in practice to keep the children of Atlanta safe. And so now, in this year of the youth, I am grateful for the opportunity to thought partner with our city leaders on how youth empowerment, community engagement, as well as effective, compassionate policing can contribute to the protection of our children, our families, and our neighborhoods. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Milton Jones, and I too was born and grew up here in the city of Atlanta. And it's been my pride to represent the city in other parts of the country and the world, but it's always been home. It's where we've raised our children, where our grandchildren are growing up. But we know that to have a great quality of life and to be the great city we say we want to be and have to be and are, we have to continue to invest in the growth and development of our city. And that includes growth and development of the training facilities for our first responders and police officers. You know, there are a lot of different things that have been said, a lot of myths floating about, but I represent a lot of business people here, members of the 100 Black Men of Atlanta, of the Atlanta Business League, of the Just Brothers organization. And one thing as business people we know is that we have to deal with facts, not myths. And so in that regard, I think the important thing is to understand the true facts of why it's important to have a world-class training facility, if you're going to have a world-class police force and force of first responders. I think myself, as I get a little older, what happens if I were to get sick or have a stroke or have a heart attack? I'd hope it doesn't happen. But if it did, I know that people from the fire department are trained to make me better. And where they go to get trained until they can get me to a hospital to make me better and fully well, they go to get trained to do their work at training facilities like the one that we hope to have and that we're talking about. All of these are examples that I don't have to carry you all through, but I want to thank the organizations who are here and please want to welcome them, members of the 100 Black Men of Just Brothers and the Atlanta Business League. So thank you. And the Black Business Chamber. Great, thank you.
Thank you very much. When I was elected mayor back in 1981, Atlanta listed as the murder capital of the world. We had more people being killed than we could figure out why. We were just coming out of the missing and murdered children. So that, plus the fact that we were just a city that had just reached 1 million people. Now we're a city that's going beyond 7 million people. So what we found when we looked into the crime coming in, the murder rate, it was basically a drug war between Chicago, Detroit, and Miami. And we were in the middle of it. I say that to say that crime is an international phenomenon. We have the world's busiest airport. It functions very well, but every time I go through there, I realize that it also has a reputation for female trafficking. There are so many things happening in the lives of the people of this nation that we have always taken the leadership and tried to figure out peaceful answers that develop the entire community and that all of us can be proud of. That's what we're setting up this training center for. I don't know whether anybody's ever tried to run into a fire. I did once, and it was like sticking your head in the oven and having the air cut out from under you. And we have to provide training for the young men and women that are keeping us safe. And that requires space. It requires the kind of cooperation that we have here. And I would say, though I'm not exactly a member of the business community, I would say that almost everything you see here is endorsed by the business community. And the way we have solved these problems that we've had and will continue to have is getting everybody together and doing the best that we can. And I'm very, very proud of Mayor Dickens for, one, growing up in this city and making us proud at Gene Childs Young Middle School, Benjamin Mays High School, Georgia Tech Institute of Technology, and the Andrew Young School of Public Policy at Georgia State. So
That's right.
we got leadership here, and that leadership has support, and we want the support from the entire nation. Last thing, I looked around one time, and everybody that had worked for me, practically every major city in America had somebody from Atlanta doing something important that they had learned to do here. And so we are a big league city. And whatever happens here, other people are going to look to. And I think this is one thing that's on the right track, preparing to meet whatever institutions and whatever problem needs and comes to us with.
Mr. Bryan, you come forward.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm John Bryant of Operation Hope. I want to first and foremost thank God for allowing us to even have a democracy like this in a city like this. And I want to commend the mayor and his right arm, Courtney, for asking questions. They didn't call with demands. They didn't call with dictations. The mayor and Courtney asked questions. Are we doing the right thing? Are we going about this the right way? Is our post about this right? And we start asking questions of just brothers. And what you will find is that oftentimes the rational people are quiet. What you have here is a radical movement of common sense. It is illogical to think that only my wealthy white friends in Buckhead are interested in public safety. That's irrational. What you see here is the owner of Buckhead Mercedes, Greg Barranco. What you see here is the CEO of a bank. Where's Ken? What you see here is an Olympic gold medalist, Edwin Moses. Where's Edwin? What you see here is a former chairman of Fannie Mae, Perry. And you have other mayors, Mayor Campbell, sitting here quietly in support of our mayor. All of this is an intentional display of a radical movement of common sense that says this: no one wants bad police officers. Everybody wants good ones. No one wants crime in their city. Let me be very blunt. This is the 10th largest economy in the United States, Atlanta, Georgia. It's not about black or white. It's not about red or blue. It's about green. It's about economics, and you cannot have a prosperous city that is an out-of-control city, that's a crime-ridden city. I've had crime in my own family. Let me rephrase it. I've had people committing crime against my own family. You know what a slider is? Am I talking to myself? Do you know what a slider is? Someone slid right into my wife's car and decided it was theirs. So this has to stop. We have to knock it off. No one wants criminals. No one wants crime. No one wants their mother or their grandmother beat up or even scared to walk through their city. Can I get an amen? Amen? So what you see here is Atlanta. 2. And we say, knock it off. We say we support our mayor. We say that we want a police training center so we have well-trained police. I'm glad we're here. I'm glad we're doing this. Frankly, I'm not sure why we have to. Every major city has a police training center. And this one is police, mayor, and fire. And 80% of the calls are for fire. Is that right? Fire calls are for rescue. 80% of the calls are for rescue. And there are much more fire stations than police stations. We've got to get our hands around the facts, ladies and gentlemen, and we've got to be about something. And that something is that nobody's going to solve our problems but us. This is not somebody else's problem. This is whose problem is it? Whose problem is it? I'm done.
All right, you've heard it from this good group of individuals. I give honor to previous mayors that's here, Ambassador Andrew Young and Bill Campbell. Thank you all for being here, and all these other great civic leaders. Let's give it, guys, thank you for showing up. Thank you. I'll take some questions at this time.
First question over here.
Oh,
Hi, Mr. Mayor.
She's got the mic going over that way.
How are you doing today?
Good.
Good to see you, Ambassador Young. So you mentioned your task force started today. It was their first meeting. There's been some concern that these are closed doors meetings about a lack of transparency. Can you explain why they're closed door and why the open records meeting laws don't apply to them?
Yeah, so the Community Stakeholder Advisory Committee has been meeting for a year, and those meetings are public, open records, and you see the agenda, et cetera, and that's always been the case. This task force just got started, and we asked them how they would like to be open to the press, where would they like to meet, and quite frankly, a lot of these individuals expressed today that they were scared of the individuals that have thrown Molotov cocktails, that have sent threatening letters and done these things. So they said they actually wanted to make sure that their meetings, that you had to have an ID to come in, that we knew who was coming. So for these community members to tell us that they were afraid to be a part of a task force, let us know to make sure that their protections are there so they can do their work. So this was on their behest to make sure that, our first meeting today, that we asked them how they want to go about their work and not have intimidation take over what they're doing. What's next?
Next question over here, sorry.
Just on that same line, one task force member today said he got into the room today and he was expecting to talk about the training center, and then they really said, actually, we really just want your input mainly on the prison, the former prison farm there, as well as the acreage around the training center. That your work, that the work of this task force won't be focused so much on the training center. Some of the task force members are now reconsidering if they want to be a part of this. What productivity would you like to see out of the task force, and will they be focused on the training center itself?
Yeah, so actually that's totally different than what I left them with when I went and gave them their charging orders when I first started it. When I walked into the room, I said, I want you to come in as your whole self, be your authentic self. I do not expect unanimity on decision making. I believe that everybody's I said that you were selected because some of you oppose the training center and some of you are in full support of it, and some of you are just trying to figure out how you can give your input so that you can be helpful. I said the 4 things that you're putting your input on is the prison farm, the police and fire training, which is the public safety training center, the green space, the parks, etc., and the sustainability and the environment. All those things are more than what you just said that 1 or 2 members told you. So those 40 individuals heard from me that I want input on all of the above, and I even gave them an example of how the community stakeholder group gave us lots of feedback over the year that had us move the entrance from Key Road to Constitution, got us with a 100-foot tree buffer, allowed us to be able to move the firing range. All of those inputs we've already put in, and so these new inputs, if they're good ideas, we'll be able to utilize them. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, what do you say to critics who say that this closed-door meeting shows a lack of accountability?
I think that I disagree, because the individuals that are in the meeting tell us how they want to conduct that meeting. Mind you, these individuals also said that at the end of the meeting, the press can be available, and this was the very first meeting. So this was homeroom. Right? So this was the very first meeting of a group of people that had not been gathered together for this cause. And so here we are today, being able to address you in an open forum to answer the questions that you may have. You've had a community stakeholder advisory committee that has met a number of times, over a dozen times, that are wide open community meetings. And so what I say to you is these 40 individuals that have decided to serve our city, they get to determine how they like to be addressed and how they would like to front the media if they so choose. If they don't want to, I wouldn't put anybody to have these cameras and a microphone in their face if they weren't ready for it when they've decided to sign up for the work of the people. All right.
We're done, thank you.
Thank y'all.
All right, so that was Atlanta Mayor Andre Dickens. I'm going to recap everything that was just said here for those of you that might have jumped in late or just wanting to really go through what exactly was said. I'm going to be looking down at my notes here. I was listening in along with you guys. The mayor delivering his remarks, coming out of the task force meeting, Ambassador Andrew Young speaking as well as members of this task force. And by the way, I did see some questions and comments on our YouTube live saying, who are these members? That is public information. We'll go through some of that here in this recap together. So this was a task force to address the developments of the Atlanta Public Safety Training Center that has long been grounded in controversy over the location of where these developments are trying to take place and the magnitude of a training center in the city of Atlanta and DeKalb County specifically. This has been a highly scrutinized project and one that has garnered support and also heavy criticism from both local people and some people from out of state who've flown out here to express environmental concerns, to express concerns over having a major police presence in a community like DeKalb County. So let's talk a little bit about the remarks. Mayor Andre Dickens saying the task force is going to be focusing on some key points of the development efforts of the Atlanta Public Safety Training Center, some of those being parks and green spaces, visioning, memorializing and repurposing the former Atlanta prison farm site, sustainability and resilience efforts, and as well as police, fire, and 911 training curriculum. Now that curriculum portion, very important part of today's press conference. The mayor and members of this task force saying that every major city has, for the most part, a public safety training center, and part of their efforts is to bring that to Atlanta, a major city, clearly a big player, and one where crime is a big concern among many residents, one that has been the central focus for Atlanta Mayor Andre Dickens. But he basically pointed out that Atlanta has some of the largest fire and police department in the entire state of Georgia, and yet they do not feel like they have the proper training center for both the fire and police departments to initiate proper public safety and advanced law enforcement curriculum that can then be utilized within the community. So from the mayor's standpoint, from the task force, this to them is a positive effort, again, to bring those initiatives to the city of Atlanta, to what is Georgia's largest police and fire department force, and also address some concerns with the current state of training. You know, fire and police department, as Mayor Andre Dickens says, a lot of them are working out of condemned buildings, are renting spaces around the community, or they're training at night when they hope that there's less traffic on the road to interrupt any training efforts that they try to undergo. Now, Ambassador Andrew Young also pointed out that when he was mayor, crime was worse in his eyes, and throwing out his support to Mayor Dickens in creating initiatives such as a public safety training center, expressing his support of that public safety training center to bring some of that advanced law enforcement training to the community. Now, again, this task force largely made up of community members. I'm going to read some of those to you. I'll point some of those out, but as you heard in the press conference here, as I searched for my notes, made up of U.S. Environmental Protection Agency members, made up of the NAACP of Georgia, again, just community members like you and I are on this task force, authors, AUC staff, a retired pastor and community activist, Dr. Gerald Durley, Georgia State University personnel. Again, these are community members. We have a CEO of a major bank in Atlanta, local people, local community members that have thrown out their investment in participating in a task force, being a voice to the community. Now, a lot of concerns are raised in this press conference. If you were listening towards the end, some questions concerning the lack of transparency in having these closed door meetings. This was the first ever task force meeting. It was not public, not available for public viewing, but they did come out and talk a little bit about where their concentrations would lie. But there has been controversy and criticism around the lack of transparency and lack of accountability in having closed door meetings. Our reporter Patrick Quinn saying to the mayor, you know, we spoke with one of these task members. They were surprised that they felt there wasn't a lot of conversation around the public safety training center, and it was more along the Atlanta prison farm site, and whether that would develop into talks of where the task force has said their focus would be, the public safety training center, at which point the mayor said, you know, this is the first of many meetings, and that he is allowing these task force members to really lead the conversation, part of which the mayor said they wanted the meetings to be closed doors out of concern over public safety. So a lot there. We're going to continue to follow and bring to you the latest developments in this highly public, highly controversial development of the Atlanta Public Safety Training Center on our website, atlantanewsfirst.com. Make sure you download the free Atlanta News First app. That's where we're putting out the latest information and more, a full timeline of all of the latest developments in this story and what I imagine will be many to follow. So we'll keep it right here. Make sure you join us on our afternoon and evening newscasts on Atlanta News First.